So, that Switch 2 Direct, am I right? Okay, this is gonna be something a little different from my regular content. It's definitely gonna be unscripted. If you've seen my What's New in 2024 video, you'll definitely understand the format by now. But anyways, I'm gonna do it anyway, you know? I have a big video in the works relating to Nintendo Directs that I want to get to soon. I'm almost done with the recording phase of it, but it should be done by the end of the weekend, or the recording phase should be done by the end of the weekend. Then I should have the video uploaded by around the 12th. If not, it'll probably be the 13th, but you get it by now. So, a few days ago, Nintendo dropped their Switch 2 Direct, and honestly, I liked it a lot. There's a lot I want to discuss that I haven't yet, from everything announced in the show to the after show. I'll mostly be talking about the Direct itself though, and how I feel about the console itself, cause there's a lot to unpack here, and I want to go in depth with it a little bit. So we open up with Mario Kart World, which genuinely looks amazing. We saw this at the Switch 2 announcement trailer, but we're learning more about this game, and learning more about it, it's genuinely amazing to hear some of these things. I really like the idea of the kart turning into other things, like a snowmobile, a jet ski. They took out the gliders and replaced it with the kart turning into a plane. But not only this, you can also wall drive and also grind on rails, which is fucking cool if I'm being honest. I also really like the name change here. Instead of it being like a number like Mario Kart 7 or 8, it's just Mario Kart World. That really makes it pop out a bit more in my opinion. I think the number titles are pretty good in my opinion, even though it's just 7 and 8, but honestly, I think I like the world title more than those, so yeah. Did I mention some of the racers this time around? We got Nabbit and Hammer Bro from Mario Kart Tour, and that's amazing. We also got some other racers like a Moo Moo, a Sidestepper, a fucking Dolphin. This roster is fucking insane in my opinion, and I am here for it. I love it so much. Also, there's a few more courses I want to talk about, like this horror-themed course. It looks pretty cool in my opinion. There's Wario Shipyard, which you can see in the course selection screen. And then the Toad's Factory theme starts playing out of nowhere, and that's fucking amazing that it's back in this game. That's all I've ever wanted from the Mario Kart series, to bring Toad's Factory back. I love that course. Overall, this was a super cool announcement to start off the Direct, and I don't think anything could ruin it for the worse. After that, we get the announcement of Nintendo Switch 2 Game Chat. It's literally Discord. I appreciate Nintendo is transparent about the frame rates though. In my opinion, I think Game Chat is kinda useless considering we have apps like Discord. But I guess it's also useful for people who don't use Discord. So yeah, cool, I guess. Also, I forgot to mention that animation with Bowser Jr. is genuinely really cute. I love how Nintendo animates these sort of things, you know? Game Share is another thing that got announced this Direct. It kinda reminds me of Download Play. That's pretty cool. I genuinely kinda forgot that this was announced during the Direct, so in all honesty, I don't know what else you want me to say other than it's pretty cool that it reminds me of the Download Play from the DS era, you know? We then get some news about specs, featuring 120 frames per second for certain Nintendo Switch games, and did I mention the HDR looks beautiful? I know it's just for Mario Kart World right now, but it looks gorgeous, and I love it so much. The Joy-Cons also get an upgrade. They're magnetic now when they stick to the console, but also the SL and SR buttons are so much bigger. One of my biggest problems with the Joy-Cons was those buttons were so small, they were like the size of Tic Tac, so that's a relief. Also, mouse controls are genuinely really cool to know about. It kinda opens up more possibilities for the Nintendo Switch in a way, you know? I think the biggest takeaway from this segment is the fact that the storage size for the Nintendo Switch 2 is 256 gigabytes. My issue with the Switch was it was limited in storage with only 32 gigabytes, which, compared to its competition, it really isn't a lot. Later on, we learned that microSD cards from the Switch 1 don't work with the Switch 2, which is kind of a problem in my opinion. MicroSD card Express cards work instead, but honestly, really? Can't we just use the original microSD cards for the Switch 2? I mean, I could understand the transition between the old 3DS models and the new 3DS models, in a way. But the Switch 1 and the Switch 2? I don't really know. We get a new title after this known as the Welcome Tour, which is a neat little title that shows off the Switch 2's capability. Why they made it a paid digital game to me is ridiculous, and I don't know why. After this, we get some Nintendo Switch 2 edition games, starting off with Mario Party Jamboree with Jamboree TV, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 editions with Zelda notes, Kirby and the Forgotten Land DLC, which is probably the best announcement to come from this entire thing considering it's a new campaign, and Metroid Prime 4 still looks beautiful, with quality mode and performance mode. Then we get some Pokemon Legends ZA news, which looks better. That's all I can really say about this title. Dragon Drive is later announced, which utilizes the Nintendo Switch 2's mouse capabilities, which is kinda cool to show off in a way. And after this, we get some new third-party stuff, or rather, third-party titles coming to Nintendo Switch. Elden Ring gets announced for Nintendo Switch. Never played it, but it's super hyped that it's coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. We get Hades 2, which is an early access title on Steam if I remember correctly. Street Fighter 6 plus Amiibos. That's cool to hear about. Third-party Amiibo is always so cool to know about in a way. Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion? I don't know. I'm glad it's releasing in September in a way, you know, really, because Split Fiction, fuck the Oscars, EA Sports, Hogwarts Legacy, no. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 plus 4, is that fucking SpongeBob? We get some Hitman news, and the announcement of Project 007. Oh yeah, and Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster and Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. These definitely are games that are coming to Nintendo Switch. I really like that Hades 2 is coming to Nintendo Switch. Street Fighter 6 and Amiibo support is coming to Nintendo Switch as well, which is super cool. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 plus 4, I know 1 plus 2 is also on Switch, but the fact that we're getting SpongeBob DLC for 3 plus 4 is awesome. Yakuza 0 is also really cool to know about. I know we got a Yakuza game on Switch, like, in August 2024, but, you know, it's cool that we're getting more Yakuza, you know? Elden Ring, that was actually kind of hype in a way, because this was one of the best games to come out during its time. I think it came out around 2022 or 2023, somewhere around there, but the fact that it's releasing on the Switch 2 is pretty cool. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, that title is raw as fuck, I love that. And that's all I can really say, this just looks like more Age of Calamity in my opinion. But after this, we get GameCube games on Nintendo Switch too. Wind Waker, Soul Calibur 2, and F-Zero GX. Oh my god, I love the F-Zero franchise, and I'm glad F-Zero GX is finally getting a re-release after all this time. The fact that it's even re-releasing on Switch as well with widescreen support, that's fucking awesome. Now, of course, this is the starting lineup, which is pretty minuscule, but the fact that we're even getting GameCube games on Nintendo Switch is amazing in itself. Also, Super Mario Sunshine was announced for Nintendo Switch 2's online service. The fact that it's even releasing there makes Super Mario 3 All-Stars a little bit more irrelevant in a way. After this, we get more third parties with Deltarune Chapters 1 through 4 on Nintendo Switch 2's launch day, which is amazing to hear about. These chapters were in development for like a long time now, and the fact that they're being announced for Nintendo Switch 2 all this time later is amazing. It's of course coming to the Nintendo Switch 1 as well, but the fact that we got this announcement now was pretty cool. And then out of nowhere, Borderlands 4 does a genuine 180 for the Direct and turns everyone's moods upside down. Civilization 7 is coming to Nintendo Switch with mouse support, 2K games are coming. Survival Kids breaks the entire stream. Enter the Gungeon 2 gets announced, Star Seeker gets announced, Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition gets announced for Nintendo Switch, and then Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate gets announced. Holy shit. But that's not the only holy shit I'm getting, because after this, a sizzle reel is shown. And is that Silksong? Holy shit, I thought you were dead! From Software announced their Switch 2 exclusive title, Duskbloods. I don't know much about it, nor did I care much about it, but I think it looks pretty cool in my eyes. Of course, I would like to play it if I could buy a Switch 2, that is. But after that, Kirby Air Riders gets announced, which is directed by Masahiro Sakurai. After years of retirement, I think it was well worth the wait for him to come back to Kirby, you know? Kirby Air Ride was always kind of my favorite GameCube game in a way, so the fact that it's even releasing a sequel at all, even directed by Masahiro Sakurai himself, is fucking amazing, and I love that so much. The Direct ends off with a new Donkey Kong game, and the fact that it's 3D makes it all the more special because I think this is the first time since Donkey Kong 64 we genuinely got a 3D platformer Donkey Kong game. The game is titled Donkey Kong Bonanza, and that actually ends off the Direct with a high note. 2 games in a row that are genuinely really good. I really don't think there's anything that could make this all the more worse in a way. Wait, what the fuck do you mean the Switch is $450? Yeah, so, genuinely great presentation. I don't like the pricing at all. And that's all I'm gonna say, and that's how I'm gonna end the video. I really hope there's a price cut soon, but yeah. I have no words. Anyways, that's the end of the video. See you later.
Hey, yo, look out down below. Here it comes, Banana Slammer, Conquer hero.
This Direct's honestly a bit weird. If you've heard of the song about the combination of Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, you'll understand why. Because not only did we get an indie world that day, but also a partner showcase.